Welcome to OpenFrame, a podcast by Pixieset, the place for photographers and other creatives to have inspiring, honest, and uplifting conversations.
Aida, you're a wonderful human with so much light and fire, like so much energy, a photographer, podcaster, a mother, a cheerleader, and a championer of other people. Championer? Is that
Just
a
a champion in general? Yeah.
Did I make that up? You champion other people.
Love to do it. I'm always saying cheering you on, and I just feel like people need to hear some encouragement, and it just kind words go a long way.
They really do, and it's one of the things I've noticed straight away about you, and even with your new project, the African storyteller, and you're always about cheering other people on and platforming them, and I love that. And today it's about you though, and all the things you do. So thank you for joining me today, and I'd love if you could give us a little introduction or a long introduction on who you are, where you are, what you love, what you do, and why you do it, and then we'll get started.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be a guest on my very first podcast. So I'm excited. I'm Aida. I am a photographer based in Germany. I mostly do intimate weddings and elopements with my husband. So we're in business together. We have 2 little kids. One is 2 years old. The other one is 5. So it's crazy around here, especially during the lockdown. And just something more personal. I'm Ethiopian. I was born and raised there. A lot of people think I'm American because of my accent, but I'm not. Although I did study there, so I did my bachelor's in the US.
Oh, did you? What did you study?
Travel and tourism.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Completely different.
Totally different. And then I moved to Switzerland and did my master's there, also in tourism and business management. So
okay, gotcha.
I'm far away from my studies. And that's all thanks to my husband, who I met in my last year of my master's and saw that he was living the life that I wanted in terms of life on his own terms. So even though I had taken an internship, it turned into a full-time job, but I wasn't too happy and figured, you know what, I want to have what he has, and joined him in the business. So that's kind of how I found myself in wedding photography.
Okay, so your husband was the one that was already a wedding photographer.
Yeah, exactly.
I had no idea. So poor Tim, because to me, it's it's you are the business. I thought it's to me, you're the face of the business. No offense, Tim. I'm really sorry.
I'm sure he won't take any offense, because he's more like the guy who's in the background doing all the things and helping a whole lot. I have to give him so much credit. I'm always bouncing ideas off of him. He helps me get some more direction. It's just I'm the one who's more outgoing, also online, or even when we're at workshops and stuff. I just have this extroverted personality that makes me look like the face of all this. But he's the genius behind all of it.
Amazing. That's beautiful. How did obviously he was doing wedding photography, but how did he rope you into it? Were you always interested in photography? Were you doing anything else, creating things? How did you get into that?
Hey, I was the most clueless person. I had no eye for photography. So I always say, if I can do it, anybody can do it. The camera confused me. It's just the fact that my motivation was very high to leave the job that I was in. And it started as me filming weddings alongside him, because his couples kept asking for, they wanted a videographer at their weddings. Yeah. And that was, easier because I just had to press record, and we didn't charge much. So I was just kind of doing it. Clients were happy enough, wasn't that great. And then eventually I realized, photography is what's really wanted. So during the winter time, I was just maybe if I just focus and learn this, it will work out. And then, it just helped that we started with me, not asking for much money for the weddings that I did in the beginning, and realized, okay, this is working. And the passion came later when I realized, oh, I actually have a knack for it. It just, so it's opposite to many stories out there.
Wow, I love that. I love that how different people, differently they get into this business. Because we have to be honest, a lot of the stories are, I started when I was 5 years old because my dad had a camera, or my granddad had a camera. I was surrounded by. So that's a lot of what you hear, isn't it? So that's really cool. I like it.
Yeah, same for me. I just keep saying, I literally composition, all these things. I did not have an eye for it. I literally learned it in like the technical way. And then once I got that down, I was able to explore more of the creative, artistic side of photography.
Wow, that is such a different approach then. Then you had to like step into your intuitive like creation mode later, basically, and like breaking the rules and stuff that came later.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just saw that like I actually am pretty good working with people because I just love people, and the more I did it, the more I realized, oh, number one, also the value of photography, right? And also reflecting at the few photos I have also from my childhood, growing up in Ethiopia, we didn't have the chance to have so many. And then knowing that, oh, I'm actually able to create this for others, and then realizing, okay, what meaningful photographs actually look like, and exploring that. All those things came later, but the more I was able to dive into that, the more I started to love it, So that's how it looks like for me.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I had no idea. That's really, really interesting. And I guess, anyone, wherever they start, are on an exploration with photography anyway. Even if you start out as, the artist, that doesn't care about any of the rules or whatever, there will be a point in time during your career where you will look at other approaches and other angles, and you will have to learn certain things that you might have ignored in the beginning. So it's all like a very interesting process anyway for anyone.
Totally. And I feel like the fact that we're all different makes it interesting.
Yeah. And there's no like, this is the right way to do it.
Right. Yeah.
Which is kind of a little bit also what we're talking about today, because we're talking about one of your favorite topics.
I know.
Aida, you're a planner. You're a strategic person, which I love this because I'm not. So I'm always on the search for systems and strategies, which I then try for like 2 weeks and then I give up. To be completely honest, shout out to my people who feel the same way. If you've tried all the systems and strategies, and just don't stick to anything, but you love, to have like structure and to plan and your days and your business, and plan everything out, so much so that you created a planner for wedding photographers specifically.
Yes. And the truth is, actually, by nature, I'm a very scattered person. I'm all over the place. I am disorganized. I am a hot mess, so it just came out of necessity because I wasn't getting my stuff done. Everything was everywhere. And so I used to think that having structure meant that like I'm restricted, and I'm a person who wants to feel free, and not tied down. But the more I realized, okay, I actually need structure. And the more I implemented the structure, I realized that freed up time for me to do other things. So it was the opposite of what I expected it to be. And I started becoming like obsessed, because once, I was less scattered and had clarity of thought and a plan in place, things started to happen for me, and like that's how I got into it. Yeah, just thinking back of, starting, I wouldn't say starting this business, joining this business with my husband, it was just kind of out of necessity. Then I got into it. And then okay, we're both self-employed. And in the beginning, okay, I was taking on any weddings, for example, you know? And what happens when you take on any weddings? You end up not being so happy, right? You're dealing with clients that necessarily are not the right fit clients for you. Not charging to the point that like you have to work too much, and then you end up working, taking on so many bookings, working long hours and all these things. And in order to change that, you have to implement some sort of action steps, right, to get you out of it. And that requires a plan, you know. And obviously when it comes to business, it's usually figuring out, okay, what kind of clients do I actually want to attract? What does it take to make that happen? How am I going to change up my branding, my messaging, you know, all those things. So that ends up coming to like thinking about, okay, actually, what is our brand? How are we going to put it out there? What changes do we need to make, like, to our online presence? All those things. And having a timeline, a deadline, milestones for checking in on that, all that was more made possible for me, just like having a strategy in place and working with my planner. And initially I was just using any planner that I would find, you know, at the store somewhere, but they're just not made, like custom made for wedding photographers. I couldn't find anything. Scouring the internet and everything, and figured, you know what, I'm just gonna make one. And if I need it, I'm sure there are other people who also are looking for it and need it. So yeah, that was end of 2019 when I did that.
Oh, just in time for all the weddings to stop.
Yeah, which is super exciting. So it was a physical planner at that point, and I was just launching it. It was really a soft launch. Like I said, I'm based in Germany, so I sold it here within Europe. And I had big plans of like really getting it at workshops and stuff. But yes, 2020 was just at the door with its own plans. So I had to put a pause on it, and I've been waiting, thinking, okay, things are gonna change. And then I just love physical planners, you know, that is my ideal pen to paper, but realized, okay, things are so unpredictable, and I still want to get it out there because people can use, actually, there are now more possibilities to make a digital planner, which is what I'm working on at the moment. And I've been getting a lot of feedback from people who use the physical planner and implementing it, and getting ready to get it out there to people.
Can I have one? What the first question is it just specifically for wedding photographers?
This one is really tailor-made for wedding photographers, but if there are any portrait photographers out there, this is something which is just, that's the good thing about it being digital. It's easier to make. You know, I can work on it by myself and just make it available easier than when it's a physical planner. All these print shops have like a minimum amount that they would print, which is about depending who you're working with, but they want like 1,000 copies printed or something like that, depending, you know. Or if you do a less batch of like just 100, the price per planner is way higher and stuff like that. But when it's digital, anything is possible.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I'd love to see what that would look like. And I'm really interested in the product for the planner for the wedding photographers. What are the main, like the fundamental pillars, and how is it structured? How do you help the overwhelmed wedding photographer like get the act together?
Yeah, so pretty much it's about them getting organized, right? This planner is also, because I notice when wedding photographers get overwhelmed, it has to be with like, they feel like they don't have an overview of all their clients.
Yes.
And, you know, all the special requests for their clients, or the status of where things are with their clients. So that's one of the main aspects of it, is where you can track, okay, you know, obviously there are some systems online you can do it in terms of have they paid their invoice, okay, this and that, but this is also focusing on when you're editing, hey, you can check off, have I backed up all these images? Have I done all these steps, which are, always, it should be the same process, more or less, for each client. When we have a lot of things going on, sometimes we can miss a step and we can be like, oh my God, did I actually send that out or do this? But if you have it all written down and ticked off, it just even gives you a peace of mind. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is really about goal setting. So I feel like at least people should be setting annual goals. It doesn't have to be something huge, but 1, 2, 3 goals, like maximum 3 big goals. But to just see, okay, within the quarter, within 3 months, I would love to reach this and within this goal, and then also tracking it month to month. So that's something that I'm incorporating in the planner, so that that's also not put to the side. And then in terms of the breaking it down, simplifying is one of the key words for me. Just focusing on
that. I love the word simplifying.
Yeah, we have a tendency to overcomplicate things mostly, so I just want to say, hey, prioritize and focus on actual tasks that are moving you forward in your business or what you want to accomplish, and don't get tied down on like busy work that is just not getting you anywhere, so that's the main focus of the whole planner, to actually help people get from A to B in an easier way. Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. So it consists of these two things. That's really, really good. And as you said, like with wedding photography, so many of the steps are repetitive, like they are the same for every client. So it is kind of very easy to make it like a system and be like, come on, let's just track this, where are we on the journey? Where are we on the steps? It's just that we don't do it often times.
Exactly. There are just a lot of things, that's why I'm such a fan of like having templates and things. These things repeat. There's no reason why you have to start from zero every single time. If you want to tailor it to a certain client, you can always do it. But another thing is, it just ensures that you don't forget anything. And that way you're serving your clients well. And you can always stay on brand when you actually take the time, sit down and make sure that things are just done properly. Then it really reduces overwhelm. Yeah.
That's so true. And you get easily overwhelmed as a wedding photographer in wedding season, which is like, for some people, it's 12 months out of 12 in like in some parts of the world. And for others, it's like 9 months or 8 months out of the year where it's just nonstop craziness. So that is so important to work on that overwhelm, like to bring that down. But you also have like 3 other steps or like main areas that you mentioned to me, that to help that overwhelm, or like to work on those 3 areas that can reduce overwhelm in as a wedding photographer. And those are plan, process, and personal care.
Yeah, so those are the 3 main categories that I group them in. Because if you notice anything about me, I always categorize things in 3s. My husband laughs. He's just like, another podcast episode, or here are your 3 steps. Here are your 3.
3-point system.
Exactly.
Well, it is apparently it's like a holy number, isn't it, or something?
Yeah, I just feel like we remember it better. We're not overwhelmed by it being like 5 steps, and it's just, simplifies things. So the first one is plan, and under plan, there are different things. For example, it's planning your goals. You're setting goals. You want to implement them. So you want to have a timeline. You want to have actionable steps. You want to know what resources you need. So those are things you can do, and a planner helps you do that, or you can use an online calendar, whatever actually helps you accomplish that. And then within planning, as I am always saying, being organized means also the office space you're working in, your desk. also knowing where things belong. I've
Mhm.
I've had issues where, I would have lenses all over the place. And then I'm running around looking for my lenses
Yeah.
or my batteries and stuff. But when you have a designated spot for saying, okay, I don't have to think twice to know where my batteries are, my charger, that reduces overwhelm. That also applies to your electronic folders when you know, okay, this is how I label my folders. This is where things go all the time. And this is when I know, okay, this project, this client work is done. And this is how I'm going to back it up. Your external hard drives, all that fun stuff. Have a structure, repeat it every time. That means your brain doesn't have to work twice every time to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that structure is, sorry to interrupt, but that structure that you just mentioned, that structure can look different for everyone, right? Because not all of our brains like work the same way. So, some people need a different kind of structure and system and folding and filing system than other people. Like not one system works for everyone, but that's why you're not out here telling people how exactly to do it, but to have a system in place that really works for oneself.
Absolutely. I'm just talking from my experience and talking from the experience of talking to many photographers and seeing which areas they struggle with. And you have to know for yourself what works for you. And I never say, like you mentioned, this is the way to do it 100%, because one of the other advantages for me being in business with my husband is seeing how differently he works. He doesn't need all this for him, it's strange that I have to do all these things to figure things out, but I'm just that scattered, and he literally just works off his Google Calendar and that's enough for him. And I need more, and also in terms of like prioritizing and focusing on what's important is part of this whole category of plan, because sometimes we do find ourselves just focusing on details that don't matter at the end of the day. So again, simplify there. And one of my most favorite things is batch working. Once I figured out the power of batch working, I am such a huge fan, because it really helps us be efficient on what we're working for. And the brain is all like, no, we don't want to multitask here, because actually that's a lie. Putting things together, batch working is huge.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And the other one is personal care.
The second one is process.
Sorry.
No worries.
They all start with P. So.
Yeah, I did that because I feel like our brains remember these things easier. At least it works for me.
I know you did that on purpose, didn't you?
Yeah. Usually I would have called it self-care, but I went for personal care for this reason. Yeah.
It's good too, because whenever we hear, I read this and I don't remember in which book, but when we hear a word often enough, we tend to become like deaf to it. We become numb to it. So if we hear self-care, for example, all the time, or something else, buzzwords, they start losing their power or their meaning. So when we can find a new word, a new way to say something, it catches your attention again, and it kind of goes in deeper than that buzzword that everyone's using. There's actually like studies on this, like how some words don't generate anything anymore because they're constantly used.
I can totally see how that's true, because like you said, personal care, it's so you don't hear it, so it makes you pause. Yeah, which wasn't the reason I used it, like I mentioned, but it's a good reason to keep on using it. So I like that.
It is, and it sounds good. I'm using, like, I'm mentioning studies that I don't have the source for right now, but I promise I'm not making this up. It is. Where did I read that? I'm going to try and find it, dear listeners, and I'm going to try and put it in the show notes. But that is proven that the more we hear something, the less relevant it's. The less we hear it, kind of.
Yeah, which totally makes sense to me. So good. I will continue with process And in the process part is I'm focusing on things like, developing workflows and templates to make your life easier, and you're not unnecessarily repeating stuff. You're saving time and you're making sure the necessary things are done. Another thing to think about is delegating or outsourcing, which is not possible for everyone, but sometimes you'd be surprised which areas and what you can actually delegate or outsource. One thing people do, for example, is they're editing. Those who like to do that, they do outsource that part. I don't outsource it because for me, it's totally fine. Things are like, for me, I always say, hey, I'm in business with my husband. So that's different for people who are in business alone, and because I have this advantage, I'm able to delegate some things to him where I know he's better at doing it. For example, my husband is the one who handles most of the inquiries and emails and all like that, because the majority come in German. The ones that are in English, I do them. So I don't need to sit there and type emails thinking der, die, das, or, all the grammar, which, stresses me out. I'm like, did I say that right in German or whatever? Like talking to people in German is totally easier for me, but like writing emails will just take me that much longer, So they're just some things, or you can even get your groceries delivered in some places. That is delegating, So there are different areas to look at, and everything I do is about simplifying, which means really analyzing stuff and seeing what can you actually eliminate. Not all things are necessary, and figuring out, okay, what things can you double down on, which are actually bringing you results. And in every aspect, figuring out, hey, where can I streamline? Can I implement some sort of, booking system in terms of appointments, scheduling that? There are different things to look at. So I think that fits in nicely into the process. And the last part is personal care, because yes, overwhelm affects us, so we need to figure out, okay, what am I taking on? Where can I set boundaries? Are clients writing me at like 10 p.m.? Do I need to set some office hours? It's different for everyone. So you need just to know, okay, where should I say, okay, maybe I can say no to a certain booking. Am I overbooking myself? Is this getting too much? Am I actually getting enough rest? Am I taking care of my health? Am I eating well? Am I taking breaks in between editing? Right? So that is another thing. What I love to do, for example, is also journaling, taking the time to reflect. Some people like to meditate. Some people like to do yoga, just time to kind of come down and into ourselves. And or even having some sort of morning routine works for some people, to start the day off really good. But one of the huge things I tell people that helped me and my husband is when we decided, okay, we're going to block off about 10 days every 2 months in the summer to take a short trip. Okay. Because before we did that, we'd work the whole wedding season through. And we were both so stressed out. Like, we realized it was affecting our work, and that also affects how, we serve our clients.
100%.
Right?
Yeah. Like, if you just work through, like, from April or March when wedding season starts, normally like in Germany or in the colder parts of Europe, until like October without a break, by the end of it, you're done.
Yeah. And that's what we did in the beginning. And then we realized, okay, we can't keep on living life this way. So we would like take 10 days off and like go to France or something, whatever it is, have a really good time, come back super refreshed and pumped for the next wedding, and that just serves everyone well.
Exactly. Yeah. Not just you, but your clients as well. If
exactly.
You feel good, if you're in a happy place.
Yeah.
Everyone's happy.
Yeah. So it keeps the motivation high. So it can even be anything that makes you happy as a person and not feeling like you're just in this endless hamster wheel, day to day, day in, day out, because I mean, we're not built that way as humans, right?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things when you're self-employed to understand is, so many times we forget that resting and play is part of our business as well. It's part of life, obviously, because everything kind of blends together. But it's not just being, it's not wasted. It doesn't mean you're doing nothing, because you need that rest, you need to recharge in order to be able to work. And when you recharge and when you just play just for fun, without a business purpose, that can also actually bring more ideas and more creativity later in your business. So to kind of know that it's actually an integral part to make time for play and for rest, because it can like actually push you forward more in the end, instead of, crawling on your last your last breath, like trying to not burn out.
Absolutely. And what you said is exactly what brings me to the last point, which gives me like, I call it bonus points with another P, which is personal projects.
Oh, okay.
So I feel like if we're way too focused on, working for our clients, which means we're fulfilling certain expectations and we have obligations, right? And there's some sort of limitations around that. But as creative people, it's so important for us to have our own personal projects where we can feel free and explore and do whatever we want. And that fills us with creative juices and excitement. And yes, helps us with our overwhelm. Throw it out the window and we feel good.
That is so true. That is so true. Which is funny because as photographers, personal projects often involve more photography, don't they? But they don't feel like work. They feel like you're just playing for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be anything big, but it's just even, most creatives, either they even like maybe drawing, painting, writing. You can express it in so many different ways. And it's just allowing yourself to do that and saying, I need to step away from my business and do something for me.
Exactly. I mean, whatever it is, people, if you enjoy bird watching or, train spotting, which I didn't know what that was until Instagram, I didn't know train spotting existed. Whatever it is that makes you feel like, you have more oxygen in your lungs, you feel like you can breathe more, you feel free and you feel relaxed, do that, and then come back into your business with more energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important. And sometimes we tend to neglect it.
Yeah, often, unfortunately. So it's planning, process, personal care, and personal projects.
Yeah, I mean, I just put personal projects under personal care, to keep it to my nice 3 Ps. But I think it's an important part of it that we shouldn't forget.
Yeah, it really is. Do you use, I'm curious to know if you use any like client management systems though, like that help you with, bookkeeping and stuff like that?
Yeah, in my case, like I said, my husband takes care of like most of our clients and invoices and all that. And he said he doesn't need it. So I'm free in that aspect. I always say I'm really spoiled because even when it comes to, we always talk to our clients before booking, all I have to do is like show up for the Zoom meeting and be like, hi, I'm Aida, because he takes care of that part. And I'm so lucky in that sense. And he just frees me up to do things with the podcast and all that because he knows my heart is in this. So, and he enjoys it. He has no problem doing those things.
I love that. So he's your system. What would you say to someone, for example, like me? I've always like looked for like systems at different places, tried different things. I tried them for a little bit and then I stopped because I realized, man, it doesn't work. For me, I'm not I have to say, like, I'm not that scattered in that sense. Maybe I'm similar to Tim, to your husband, because even without having a full-blown system in place, I just get my things done. Like, I'm just self-sufficient. I don't know what the word is.
It works out for you.
It just works out. I get my things done. I just write like all my to-dos down in my planner, like literally just down. There's no order or no system. I just write them down and I'm able to tick them off. Very simple. But I'm also I'm intrigued by those systems, but I'm also tired to find, to find a new system, to find something else. What I'm really interested in is like when you talked about streamlining, like certain processes that I'm still, maybe I'm still doing them manually, and I could really automate them and just save a bit of time. What would you suggest to people like me who are just really tired by the search for the perfect system? Like
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there is no perfect system, and I've tried so many different things out, right? What I do use is a project management system, because simultaneously I have different projects. Like, I just can't stick to one thing, even though I tell people, yeah, ideally focus. My brain does not focus on one thing. So at the moment I'm using Asana. I don't know if you've heard of Asana.
I have, yes.
Yeah, and from all the ones I've tried out, I am a huge fan of Asana, because it gives you different options of how to manage different projects. If you know Trello, Trello is just this, the blocks that you move, and that's that. But Asana, you can have the Trello system within Asana, or you can have the lists. So if you want to check off lists, you can have that, or you can have a calendar Outlook. There's so many options that I'm able to look at using Asana, and that works really well for me. Okay. And, when it comes to streamlining for your clients, you just need to look at, okay, what is the journey of my client from A to Z? And always looking at which part of this journey does not require me actively to do something. So like I mentioned earlier, even scheduling appointments is something where you don't have to have that email back and forth. Hey, do you have time on this day or that day? No, you can connect it actually to your calendar, or even for setting up like a Zoom meeting. There are so many programs now where you can integrate things. So that, and then also when it comes to things, if you're providing your clients with information, added value, and all those things, really taking the time in the beginning to create all these templates, informational materials, everything, and then always reducing the friction between sending things out or getting things done. The more you eliminate from your process, the more streamlined it gets. That makes sense.
That makes so much sense. And it's given me a lot of ideas in terms of emails.
Yeah, emails are the best, because then, you can put them in folders depending on the email provider you have, categorize them, label them in a way that you see it right away.
Yeah.
And then just use it to that much. My husband did actually do. So that's something I told him, and he's just like, okay, that's a good point. And he actually uses that.
That's amazing. Yeah, in terms of emailing and scheduling booking, that's a very good one that I want to look into. I do everything like manually. I do every booking and scheduling, like what you just mentioned, like a million emails back and forth.
Yeah, you don't need to do that at all. Like literally, there are programs I can send you a couple that I've seen, because I've been looking at it, the more I look into offering coaching and stuff, so that I don't have to be stuck always sending emails back and forth. And literally you can integrate it with Zoom and everything, and you can just show up and it's done. But obviously, the more features you have, then you would have to go to a paid plan, and you need to see, okay, am I at that point in my business to invest in that, or is the free plan enough for me? Those are things you need to look at.
Nice, beautiful. And if you can provide us with links, we can put them in the show notes. I'm sure there's still a lot of people out there, just like me, who don't use any of the stuff. and who would love to like look into that more. Same as there's people obviously who already use them, but it's super like helpful to have some point of references where to go to. We touched on this earlier a little bit or throughout the conversation. You know, the one size fits all solution systems.
Yeah.
That oftentimes is promoted, you know, different teachers, different gurus in whatever industry, even in our photography industry, in our workshop culture. Sometimes you know, there can be that notion of, if you do this, you'll be successful, and these are the 3 steps, you know, to achieve this. Almost like there's a guarantee, like this is the solution that fits everyone. When really, I know we both are not a huge fan of that, and
No.
reality, you know, real life shows that that's not really applicable.
Yeah, 100%. And I've just seen that because most of the educators that I follow online are based in the US, and me being based in Germany, I just know that the market that I serve is different.
Yeah. And what ways is it different?
Yeah, there's several things. Like, you know, it's more, I know that most of my clients, for example, really value their privacy. Right?
Yeah, I know. I lived in Germany. I know.
You know, and just, you know, how they take things. So I have to be cognizant of a lot of things, or even like being really up in your face. And, you know, I feel like mostly in the German clients, it's a little bit more reserved and stuff. People don't want to be felt like you're just forcing some things on them, whereas in the American culture is kind of there and it's okay, it's acceptable. So there are just certain nuances. Number one, of just knowing, okay, which market am I serving, right? For me, the majority are German, Swiss, and Austrians, and sometimes, you know, the French, the Italians and stuff. So that's important. Another thing that's important is really being self-aware and knowing, hey, what works for me? Is this advice aligned with my values, or even with my personality, with my integrity, the way that I want to do business? Or where's this advice coming from in terms of like, my definition of success and reaching something can be completely different from the person who is teaching this thing. Maybe, you know, there's so many things to pay attention to. Of course, there are things that are applicable and could work well. But I always say, filter, think over what this person's saying, try to figure out where are they coming from. Does it work for me? Can I apply it? And just caution against taking blanket advice thinking it's going to work for you, because it could actually be quite damaging.
Amen. So true. So that, I loved how you broke it down, like into know your market and know yourself and your business. Like, and those 2 filters, you have to apply those 2 filters when you hear, you know, sales advice or any kind of advice, not just in terms of business, also like other parts of like our industry. You always have to use those 2 filters to know your market and to know yourself and your business.
Yeah, I mean, a good example I can give to you, for example, is when it comes to email marketing, right?
Yeah.
When you listen to all these email marketers, they're telling you, okay, you have to have a lead magnet. You get all these subscribers onto your email list, and then you have to have these automatic sequence emails that go out like every 2 days for a week. And then you're giving value, and they need to know everything about you. It's overwhelming for me. And I just, for example, I cannot do this in my market. Like, people be like, whoa, slow down, like that is not working. And this also doesn't sit right with me. You know, I just feel like, okay, if you want to have a newsletter and someone actually wants to subscribe and then you're really, sending out and they want to be there, like it has to feel a bit more natural for me, and instead of really feeling like, oh, I'm going to send out like uh, emails every day for a week or whatever it is. And then I feel like I have provided enough value and I'm going to now sell my product or service, jab, 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 right hook, just like Gary says, and, as people like Gary, I love Gary Vee, but then again, he's also, has his own way of doing things, like a lot of good advice, but it doesn't work everywhere. It doesn't work for everyone.
Right? It doesn't work for everyone and not for every like culture and market. Absolutely. And I loved how you say it has to feel natural. I think one of the best marketing advice
Advice. Yeah.
I've ever heard was to sell and to market in the same way you want to be marketed to, in the same way you want to be sold to.
Yes.
So if something feels not right and like icky to you when someone does it to you, it means you probably won't like doing it either. Like if I receive marketing emails every second day, every other day, I will unsubscribe. Or like even some brands send out a letter every day, I will unsubscribe. Like once a week or every other week, that's fine to me. Like even if I'm like a huge fan and I really want to hear from you, I don't want to hear from you every single day in my inbox. So that I sell in the same way, then I will market in the same way. I cannot create a funnel with emails with like 5 emails a week. I cannot do that because it would annoy me.
Yes.
To be, yeah, right, to receive that. So I know like that it will annoy other people. It also, there will be people who won't be annoyed, but I don't like to be spoken to like that, so I don't want to do it in return. And I think it's actually one of the best things I've ever heard, and it makes so much sense with what you said. It has to feel natural to you as well.
Yeah, I mean, what happens often, the trick that people fall into is that they see this person and this person appears conventionally successful. They're talking about how they're earning 6 figures and above doing this. They have found the secret to doing it. And they feel like, okay, this is the formula I have to follow in order to be successful, So an example is, even I joined for training like a couple of weeks. I follow her online. She does a really good job. The training was actually really good for an hour. And obviously, because I signed up for it, she had my email address. And afterwards, I'm telling you, I was bombarded by emails. And I was just like, whoa,
Yeah,
it's a turnoff, right? And I was just like, actually, you did provide so much value. I actually like what you're saying. But this kind of made me take a step back and say, no, but that's not the way I would want to do it. So it's really just being intentional and aware of like how to do business and who you're listening to, how much of it you're listening to, and all that.
That's beautiful and so important, to be able to filter that. So yeah, thank you for sharing those 2 filters. That like really, really important reminder. And thank you for sharing your like planning process and
My pleasure.
and how you structure and how important that is, and also just reminding us that there's no just one right system, but do find a system that works for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nadia.
That's really really helpful, and I always enjoy like listening to you and your processes and your thoughts. I'd love for you to tell us where we can find you online, what you're working on right now, and where we can follow and listen.
Yeah, thanks. So you can find me on Instagram. It's Aida Glowik, AIDAGLOWIK. Or if you put in Wedding Photography Podcast, it will also show up on Instagram. And that's how you can find my website as well, which is wedding-photography-podcast.com. But the podcast that I share value on is called My Wedding Season, the podcast, which is on Spotify and iTunes. And the planner that's coming out soon is called My Wedding Season, the Planner, because I like keeping things straightforward and simple.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's very recognizable if it's just simple. It's like, yeah, you don't have to bend your brain.
No.
I'm looking forward to the portrait photography planner.
Something
my
I
gosh,
definitely need to look out for. Yeah.
Ida, that's 3 Ps. That is, I just realized that's so perfect for you. Come on, you would love this portrait
Oh yes.
photography planner.
Yeah. No, you've really, I'm sure there's a market, for portrait photographers as well. And that will be the project right afterwards, it seems. Yes.
Sorry, I don't want to fill your plate with more, but I'm sure there is a market. And in addition, you also just started a new project. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, it's a pleasure. It's called African Visual Storyteller. I just noticed that there's not enough platforms to showcase African photographers and filmmakers because they are the ones on the ground who are actually experiencing their point of view as something that we need to be more aware of and listen to. Mostly in Africa, the past years, it's foreigners coming to the continent and sharing images and framing a narrative, which at times has been quite harmful to the continent because it just hasn't been accurate. And I've been seeing that even during lockdown, where people are traveling to my home country in Ethiopia and sharing stuff where I just felt like this is not right. There's talent in our country. These people don't, number one, get the recognition they deserve because, for example, the big newspapers or whatever are paying foreigners to come and report. So that's one side of like when it comes to news reports, but also just in terms of, sharing our culture or different aspects. It's just more meaningful for me, at least personally, to see it from locals. And so I created this website and an Instagram account. It's really new, where I interview photographers and filmmakers, showcase their work. And it's also a way just to learn. And I always say everyone's welcome who's willing to learn and also willing to unlearn some false narratives that have been out there.
Beautiful. Because I'd love for people to follow that and follow you on that and on that journey, because it's so important who is telling which stories. And thank you for doing that and for sharing that.
Thank you.
And thanks for being here and sharing all your wisdom with us. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for getting me into this uncomfortable place for me to be comfortable getting on other podcasts, which is important. And I'm so glad that I was able to share my story and my perspective.